Basically, so long as the left is going to constantly pump out negative stories about Donald Trump, I think it's fair to constantly criticize Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she's kind of a left-wing Trump. Obviously, their political positions are different, but the way she speaks, the way she got elected. So if we're going to talk about Trump half the time, let's talk about Ocasio-Cortez on the Democrat side. Maybe it's low-hanging fruit, I don't know, but this is a really funny story. Because I've said before that I feel like Ocasio-Cortez is kind of like a left-wing Trump, reiterating myself. But in this in this story from the Daily Wire, Donald Trump Jr. scorches Ocasio-Cortez for whining about fake news. She actually started tweeting. It sounds just like Trump, pointing the finger, screaming, fake news. All right, let's see what they say. Sometimes when the shoe's on the other foot, the results are delicious. I think that's rather silly, but admittedly, it's kind of funny. Republicans have been battling biased news for decades, reported by a liberal mainstream media masquerading as fair and honest. Every day, stories with unnamed sources and high-level officials familiar with whatever story the MSM has conjured up run in newspapers and on TV, and no one on the left bats an eye. But in a hilarious turn on Wednesday, one such story really miffed Washington's new wunderkind, I don't know how to pronounce that, wunderkind, incoming Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. An article in Politico, an inside the Beltway liberal organ founded by two Washington Post reporters. I actually don't think Politico is liberal. Or at least they try to do a good job, I think, in my opinion. Cites anonymous sources that claim the Democratic Socialist wants to challenge House leadership. Rep-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is eyeing a new member of House Democratic leadership as 2020 primary target, Rep. Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, that's factually true. She said as much. Ocasio-Cortez on a live stream said that she wants to get progressives to primary Democrats. And what that means is they are targeting, the far left is targeting districts that are dominated by Democrats, okay, and have incumbents. What they want to do, because let's look at the way Ocasio-Cortez won. She did not win her district. She did not win her district. That is very important, okay? There was a primary with ridiculously low turnout. She won 15,000 votes in a district of like 740,000. Microscopic turnout. But that fringe minority is enough to get a Democratic Socialist elected. She wins the primary and immediately starts saying she's been elected. She wasn't. But here's what happens. In her district, it's like D plus 30, meaning that in all the polls, Democrats always get a 30-point advantage. She actually won with like a D27. So it's actually lower than the average. I think it's by like 2 points or something. But basically, her district will vote Democrat no matter what. The Republican basically didn't even run in the first place. She had no real competition, and that's the point. They know they can't win regular people. So what they want to do is exploit this system where Democratic districts are not willing to support a Republican, or there's no Republican opponent because it's D plus 30, bring in that primary, bring a progressive into the primary, win a marginal microscopic fringe vote number, but because primaries have low voter turnouts in these dominated districts, they just win. That's her strategy. Well, let's read on. Ocasio-Cortez, who ousted House Democratic Caucus Chairman Joe Crowley earlier this year in a shocking primary victory, puts colleagues on notice for future primaries just days after the November election, telling a live stream audience that she and an allied group, Justice Democrats, would keep working together to boost anti-incumbent challengers, though she didn't name names. But a person who has discussed the project with Cortez and her team said the Congresswoman-elect has recruited an African-American woman to challenge Jeffries, who was just elected to replace Crowley as caucus chairman, the number 5 House Democratic leadership position. The source, of course, asked for anonymity to discuss a private conversation, which happens a lot. I have also used anonymous sources. It's fairly common. I understand sometimes it sucks because you can't really, but if you don't trust a news organization, you don't. Like the people who watch me, you probably think that if I have an anonymous source, it's probably legit and you trust me because you trust me. If you don't trust me, then you think I'm lying. And that's what happens. People on the far left have accused me of lying all day and night when if you watch any of my videos, like even my opinions are literally just based off a thing I just read. It's like I don't ever use, and all of my sources are considered safe by I use NewsGuard. And a lot of people don't like it, but NewsGuard is willing to say Daily Wire's legit, and so is Huffington Post. And I'm like, not a big fan of the Huffington Post, because I think they produce biased, really, really biased stuff. the Daily Wire produces biased stuff too. If that means if NewsGuard is willing to give the right a fair shake and the left, I'm going to use it because I think that's, pull me out of my own biases against some of these sites. But anyway, long story short, anonymous sources, it is what it is. Anyway, let's just read on. Ocasio-Cortez didn't like that, not one bit. One disappointment about DC is the gossip that masquerades as reporting. This story has not a single named or hard to read. Not a single named or verifiable source, only one on-the-record comment, which is a denial. My dad had a name for junk articles like this, birdcage lining. She wrote on Twitter. Wow! She's like, Ocasio-Cortez sounds like a Trump supporter, criticizing the New York Times for their use of anonymous sources, and we can't verify any of it. How often has New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Associated Press, whoever, had anonymous sources on these stories where you're just like, I can't believe that's true. And who is your source? Why should I trust them? And CNN had stories where their anonymous sources came forward and said, we were the anonymous source, we are refuting this story. And CNN says, nope, it wasn't them, nope. And that's the power of anonymity. They can just be like, oh, nope, you're not the actual source, even if you are. And now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, sounding like Trump, sounding an awful lot like Trump. She won her district when the poll said she wouldn't. She is the underdog populist, and she regularly gaffes and makes and says nonsensical things, and now is targeting the press, and she's coming for Politico. Okay, you see, this is funny, because Politico is mainstream news. Even the Daily Wire says they're liberal. Ocasio-Cortez is now ragging on the mainstream liberal press. God, the irony. It's like, my favorite example of irony is a fire truck on fire. And this is what's really funny. Because Ocasio-Cortez is supposed to be the darling of the left, and here she is criticizing a left-wing outlet for doing journalism. If Trump is the guy saying the press is the enemy of the people and calling them the fake news, and Ocasio-Cortez is joining in that chorus, man, this is spelling bad news for the press. Because now you've lost the populists, plain and simple. And Ocasio-Cortez, look, I understand their policy positions are different, her and Trump, but there's just so much funny similarities. I want to do a side note here. You notice this photo of her where she's looking down and she's like wringing her hands together? This photo was used on a story about her claiming to be Jewish, and it led to a controversy because there's like an anti-Semitic meme photo. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a Jewish guy wringing his hands and looking down, I guess. And apparently that's what the photo was. The funny thing is, you know how I learned of this? When I first saw this photo, I thought nothing at all. I was like, it's just a photo of Cortez. But it was people on the left on Twitter saying, this is an anti-Semitic meme. And whenever this happens, I just go, how do you know that? You know, like, how is it that the people on the left who are screaming out these dog whistles are the ones who can see them? And like, then they want to accuse me of being alt-right or whatever, and it's like, I didn't even know that. That's the funny thing about PewDiePie. They criticize PewDiePie over this video where he suggests a YouTube video, and they say there's like Nazi references in it, and PewDiePie's like, I didn't know they were references, like, because PewDiePie knows so little about this stuff, it goes over his head. Like in one of the videos, they show a car crash like from Charlottesville, and PewDiePie was like, I didn't even know what that was. I just thought it was a car crash. But it's the people on the left who see these things, and it makes me wonder, when they're overtly identitarian and they believe in like racial politics and all this stuff, isn't it really weird that they're the ones who notice these things? And the only reason I know about it is because someone from like the Washington Post was tweeting about it, and I'm like, how do you know that? Like, do you go on these forums? Like, what are you doing? Well, let's see. Apparently Donald Trump Jr. had something to say about it. Well, Donald Trump Jr., who like his father loves to troll liberals, just couldn't help himself. Welcome to our world. You think that's bad? Imagine what it's like when they actually hate you, Trump responded. There was a quote tweet. The next session of Congress begins January 3rd. Anonymous sources say it's unclear if Ocasio-Cortez will have healed from her third-degree burns by then. I think that people on the right love to rag on Ocasio-Cortez, often for things that are just absolutely silly. But as I said in the beginning of this video, the left is claiming the right is obsessed with Cortez, but the left is obsessed with Trump. Now, here's the thing. I think it's fair to be obsessed with Trump, for sure. He's the president. We absolutely want to make sure we're reporting on what he does. But 90-something% of the stories about Trump are negative. So here's the thing. Ocasio-Cortez is a gaffe queen. This is almost on par with some of the gaffes she's made. Complaining that there's not a single named verifiable source? To who? Politico verified the source, and they're a mainstream credible news outlet. Sorry, Cortez. Why don't you and Trump throw a fake news party where you can both get together and complain? But let me just add one thing. Trump has banned certain members of the press from certain events. Trump canceled like a press party. But Trump has never said no press, period. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Trump has been pretty hard on the press. I think Jim Acosta should have been banned. That's an entirely different story. And there are certain people individually who have been banned as well. I think at one point he restricted access to certain news organizations. I don't like that. I don't. You can say to Jim Acosta, get out, but CNN absolutely needs to be allowed in that room, and he should not ever, remove an entire organization. Ocasio-Cortez actually banned the press straight up, outright, everybody, period, from 2 events. She's lucky. She's lucky that's all she gets, because they should be going way harder on her for that kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, it's funny. More Ocasio-Cortez things, very, very funny. Stick around. I've got more videos. Click my name. You'll see. I've just got tons of videos every day, like 3 videos a day on this channel, one on my main channel. I'll see you in a few minutes.